All right, everyone. In the wake of Jinping, basically, they're going to declare him a dictator over in China. They're eliminating term limits so that he can stay in power because they think that he's done a good job. The economy of China is teetering on the edge. Authoritarianism there is on the rise. They've managed to alienate Vietnam, kind of the Philippines, and they have the Korean problem on their doorstep. But let's take the dude reigning over these things and sort of playing second fiddle to the U.S. president. Obama was a puppet. Like, the Chinese could push him around and he wouldn't do anything. Try doing that to Trump and see what happens. You've got a looming trade war with China because Jinping won't ease back on manipulating currency. To the point where the GOP is like gunning for Trump right now, which is the funniest thing. They're like, oh, don't do a tariff war. No trade wars with China. Prices will go up. Okay, well, tell China to knock it off with manipulating its currency's value. Not that the U.S. doesn't do it too, but China takes it, I think, to a whole new level compared to most countries. Like, oh yeah, our currency is worth this much now. You're not even going to debate over the subject. Cook the books a little bit. Get a new value. It's, I guess, relatively easy to do when you've got an intranet and everything's very isolated and sort of walled off from the rest of the world capable of reviewing it. But Trump looked over at Jinping, becoming a dictator for life. And he decided to make a joke in a meeting. Oh, yeah, he's a great guy. He's going to eliminate term limits. He's so great that they don't, need anyone else to vote for. Not that there was anyone to vote against him with anyway. It's a one-party system. Do you want to vote for Xi or do you want to vote for Xi? You've got those two choices, Xi wins by a margin of 51%. Now, Trump makes a joke and says, oh, maybe we'll have to try that here sometime. Maybe we'll have to get rid of term limits. People went apeshit. They're like, oh, Trump wants to be a dictator. Trump is tyrannical. Trump doesn't understand the American system. Now, first, let me tell you, traditionally speaking, we didn't have presidential term limits until after FDR. Yeah, the old cousin-loving, intern-boffing socialist. Yeah, really, there was a problem because, World War II and the Depression, and he gave people, handouts. He taxed them at 90% to give them those things and kept people in perpetual misery. FDR was terrible for the U.S. economy. I've seen people put up graphs, oh, GDP growth went up. Yeah, because of military contractors. Okay, so the person working in the factory still has to go to the fucking bread line. They're doing really, really well. No, things pick up in the 50s. Things pick up post-Truman when all of our enemies, all the competitors for the most part, their industrial economies were debilitated. And people owed us a lot of money. Well, we were awash in wealth. It took 20 years for Europe to fully rebuild its industrialized economies. Meanwhile, we're sitting there, all of our factories are intact. None of them got bombed, other than in Hawaii. No, we were still fine, and we had invested in new tech all across the board. So unless you played nice with us, you didn't get access to it. You were 10, 20 years behind us. Soviet Union was still a potato patch. They lost so much of their population. It's like, shit. And I think you might have some problems over there, Joseph. Here's the thing, though. Number one, Trump was joking. Number two, it's not enshrined per se in a permanent way that we can't eliminate term limits. I think it would be better to introduce term limits on Congress than to eliminate them for any other particular role. Maybe we should have term limits for people in the Supreme Court, or at least an age cap. When you're at Ginsburg's age, maybe your decision-making faculties are a little bit lower. Let's just say that. Maybe we should have an age limit on these offices too. Not to be discriminatory, but if someone's like, pushing 80, might not be the greatest idea to have them in a political position. Maybe at some point they should retire. Take your fucking pension. John McCain, he's ancient as the sands of time. Nobody even knows his true age. He's like older than Methuselah. He's like, yeah, Joseph, I remember that dude. I remember Abraham too. He was kind of an asshole to me. He kept trying to kill his son. I thought he was a weirdo. You have this situation where we don't have any term limits in Congress. I think that's the bigger problem. But when Trump is joking, clearly joking in the context, you can look at the way he said it. He was joking. He's making a tongue-in-cheek reference to China. He's being sarcastic, number one. And number two, if it were a serious suggestion, he wouldn't be breaking the law in saying it. He's not saying, hey, I'm going to eliminate term limits, be president for life. No, he'd still have to be elected, number one. The fact that term limits are gone doesn't matter. And in that sense, do you honestly think, let's say he did, let's say he somehow managed to, serves a second term. Do you think he'd be elected for a third? Number one, at his age, because I think he'd be pushing 80. That might be a problem. Number two, do you think the American people would have the stomach for it after, several generations of having, a two-term limit for the presidency? No, I don't think so. Hell, some presidents don't even make it to the second term. The number that would make it to a third would be pretty scant. Now, the one argument you can make for eliminating term limits is that if a person is virtuous, if they do a good job, they probably get reelected. Not necessarily, though. You could have a dangerous situation in which they pander to a handful of urban states, give them like pork barrel handouts, talk really well about them, visit them a lot, and get reelected over and over because of the Electoral College. Or if you abolish that, they could go full nativist mode. They could give people, they could be like FDR, they could give them welfare. And they could woo over the lower classes and basically cripple the economy, make everyone, you'd have a socialized Latin American style situation. You'd have a strong arm sort of government. I am against the concept of eliminating term limits for the presidency. But if Trump is coming out and making a joke about the situation in light of the fact that China is doing exactly that, China, an authoritarian nation, and to hear like Hillary Clinton or anyone complain about it's funny because they're buddy-buddy with China. Like China was the best friend Bill Clinton ever had. They probably gave him half of his money through slush funds, them and the Saudi Arabians. Oh, yeah, here's $100 million for the Clinton Foundation. We sure don't expect anything back in return. No, we really, really care about supplying AIDS medicine to people in West Africa. So the Saudi Arabian government's like, yeah, money, oh, we got plenty of that. We're going to be charitable. Now, okay. Now, improving your world image, sure. One thing they are doing, though, they just appointed a top minister post to a female for the first time. And now women can drive in Saudi Arabia. It is actual progress. It's actually funny. But its progress is the result, I think, of good relations with the U.S. government, led as it is diplomatically by Trump, more than any feminist action. I mean, they never talk about the Middle East. They just talk about people, doing a wolf whistle on the street. Construction workers. This tech firm is too male. That's a problem. Too many male coders. We avoided the STEM degrees, but that's not the reason why. It's discrimination. The 10 women that applied for the position for 100 positions, leading to a 10% female count, it's too few. Yeah, it's a really strange situation, but I don't see anything wrong with what Trump said. If it was a serious suggestion, if I thought he was suggesting it in the here and now, seriously, not tongue-in-cheek, I'd be like, oh, it's a little weird. Not illegal, but it would be, it'd be unhelpful, I think. I think it would be better to make the case for term limits for Congress. But then again, it requires Congress to limit themselves. It's very difficult to compel a government to limit its own power. That's the ever-present problem of socialism, of bureaucracy, of government in general, is that it tends to only increase over time. I mean, slow the rate. Hopefully the private marketplace outpaces it, or at least keeps pace. You can shrink it a little bit in one area, but usually you have to grow it in another to get that accomplished. Otherwise, nobody has the stomach. Nobody has the stomach to do the real axing that we need in government. Nobody has the stomach to really take a chainsaw, ultimately, to the bureaucracies, to lobbyists, to congressional pensions, maybe, to the fact that you don't have term limits. So you have all of these problems. It's like the president has a limit. But if you're on the Supreme Court, it's for life, even if you're demented and crazy. If you get into Congress, 99% of the time, you're going to get reelected until you stop running, unless you have a major scandal. Or you have a really, really adept challenger from within the party. It's not, the other party's probably not going to flip the seat. It's pretty partisan. What we need is a good shake-up in Congress at this point. That's about all. Peace out.